This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Hey guys. So Jim, there's Ronnie. So we've been talking about a soundboard and where's my sound effect and all that stuff. I got them. I got thousands of them, man. Voice changers, the whole thing. So anyway, did you hear it? Did it come through? Chris is laughing at me.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Chris, CeeLo always laughs at me, and that's okay. I deserve it.
I like it.
Oh,
Yeah, I want to buy one now, but I don't need it. So
yeah, it's free. There's a bunch of free ones. But anywho, all right. And there's the other Chris,
No, the
the
original Chris.
trifecta, the original Chris. So, all right. So, well, um,
So if we can start off, I got a question.
go for it. That'd be great.
Is it worth, so we have the aftermarket fans on both of them. It makes life easier for us. Is it, yeah, the big one didn't come with the inline fan. So
Mhm.
is it worth plugging it in and making I don't want to, the TL timer control it, or going through Lightburn and adjusting the
Start time.
the start time beforehand, even when you have only like a minute and a half jobs? Is that
Well,
really worth it in y'all's opinion?
If in your case, if you're doing production stuff and you might run stuff for a little while and then stop for a minute and then run more stuff and stop for a minute, then you don't want to be cycling it on and off. So you could just let it run. You know, if you're putting that much actual burn time on the machine. But otherwise, I think I would let the machine control it so that you don't have to worry if it's on or off, and use that light burn start time in conjunction with it so that the fan will kick on 4 or 5 seconds or whatever before the job actually starts so that it's spooled up and it's moving its max flow rate by the time you start making smoke. See what I mean? Because that was the complaint with those inline fans. They're a lot weaker than those. That one that you said wasn't the inline. That was probably that 550. That it had a cap start AC motor, high torque motor on it, and that centrifugal fan spooled up almost instantaneously to full flow. Whereas the inline fans, they got a little DC motor in them. They're kind of weak, and they got to kind of take a few seconds to catch up. So, because the big complaint, and everybody said it, my fan's not turning on when the job starts. You see what I mean? And that's a huge complaint, and that was because of that spool up delay in the motor. The fan was technically energized when the job came on. It just didn't start pulling smoke until it got spooled up a little bit. So that
uh,
timer thing will help with that.
also, if you have a hypersensitivity to the smoke or fumes, that lingering little bit was a problem. People thought the exhaust wasn't working at all. So
Mhm.
turn it on for a few seconds, have it start sucking as soon as
Yeah.
it turns on and starts cutting.
Yeah, and that's a good point because like I didn't think about it, but if there is a delay, if you cut a little circle or just wanted to burn a circle, you'd shut your machine, hit it, fire it off, open it, and the fan never really had time to catch up, so all that smoke just goes out. And you're like, whoa, where did all that smoke come from? It must not be working. But yeah, that I've never experienced it, but I don't hear. I mean, there's still some people that manually control them, and Chris has a way to modify the switches without doing too much stuff, and he can explain that. Then there's another option where you can still have the TL timer and those functions in order, but there's a manual override, so you could just flick the switch on, but you're not affecting. If you want to turn the switch off and use it autonomously, you can do that as well and
Well, that
maintain the
switch
same function.
is going to turn your air assist on too, ain't it? You're talking about the little
Mm-mm,
slider
mm-mm. No,
on the TL timer?
no, the toggle switch that you put in between the two
Oh,
pins. You can wire a toggle switch right to the channel
oh yeah. I
and
got you.
trigger it that way. And that way, if you leave it on, it's going to stay on, of course, no matter what the timer tells it to do. But
Okay, so
if you
running a
turn it
toggle switch
off
from the TL timer to the
to
switch,
wherever,
or okay, So you just flip it on and it'll leave the fan running, or turn it off and it'll work the TL timer.
It'll work normally. Yes. Without.
Okay.
Yeah. Because now Chris's way is handy. I'll let him tell you that part.
Yeah, basically you take the 120 feed and you put it on the main contactor. Also take the chiller off and put it on the incoming 120. So whenever you turn the laser switch on, your fan's ready to run. It starts ramping up, and your laser power supply is ready to run as well. So they are tied in. What that also gives you is if you want to do a dry run, you still have your chiller on because it's no longer on that contactor switch, and you can do a dry run. Some people do that on tumblers and other things like one-off custom things just to make sure that the head goes to the right spot and plans to engrave in the right spot. But what I was going to say is, are you in an air-conditioned space? So if you leave your fan running, you're doing nothing but pulling 300-400 CFM of conditioned air out and external air in.
Yeah,
so
that's
isn't your compressor outdoors too, or outside of your space? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's
We
even
got
bringing
all
outside
that.
air in.
The air compressor's fixed. We bought an inline air dryer, a refrigerated one, and there has been zero issues.
Did you get the Harbor Freight one?
Nope. So one of my sources for lumber, he's a commercial cabinet shop on his property. Because when he was years ago, he was spraying all his cabinets and everything he was doing, and then he stopped. So he had a dryer sitting hooked up to his air compressor. He's like, I haven't turned it on in 3 years. Just cut it apart and take it. So I think I paid $750 for it, and it's $1,500-$1,600.
Is it an Ingersoll?
Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, I would opt for the Harbor Freight one, being a hobbyist, but yeah, somebody that's making money with their machines, that's good equipment right there.
And that's what's hard, that we are not your normal, just like CeeLo, you are not the norm in this world, I guess. I mean,
I think we'll agree that CeeLo's not normal. I'm not either.
It's production stuff at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you probably don't have a Calier 8010, which, one of those does me fine, but what do you got, a screw drive back there running?
It's going to unload and load whenever it needs to. Runs all the time.
And that's what ours has to be big enough, because I drag the air hose out and spray. So it runs hers, and I'm spraying or doing whatever in a whole nother area with it.
Yeah. Well, shoot, you could probably support a sandblasting booth yet with the amount of flow and volume that you got.
It's a 60 gallon.
Yeah.
Sitting, and nice. It's a 220.
Yeah.
The only thing
it's probably got oil in the sump too, so it's super
but
cool.
Yeah,
running.
That was the question. We've got all the adapter plugs and whatnot. Whether it's in y'all's opinion, is it worth it? I worry about it spooling up nonstop. Burning up the motor, because it's constantly on off, and cycling through.
Yeah. The good news is we haven't seen any evidence of the 12,000 something tickets we have that cycling that fan alone has ever been a problem. So we've had relays go out. We've had some fans just burn up.
And that's probably the nice thing about the slow start, is it's easy on the motor, as opposed to that.
That's true too, because that cap start motor, it'll make the lights dim when it kicks on if you don't watch it.
Oh yeah, it will.
I
may turn that into another dust collector. I don't know.
Yeah. I burned a stump out of the ground with mine. I drilled a bunch of holes in it and filled it with kerosene and started it on fire. And I wanted to blow on it. I wanted to accelerate. And I was like, I got that old centrifugal fan. I leaned it up against the rest of the stump and blew it right on it, man. It smoked that thing. I'll just let it run for hours. So, somebody told me that Somebody told me that those were very similar to the ones they use in grain silos to like manage the particulates and the dust in the silos so that you won't get fuel air explosions and that kind of terrible stuff.
Well,
And to maybe move.
the silos up the street have the air dryers running because it circulates it and runs air dryers
Uh-huh.
over the corn, so it doesn't
Uh-huh.
sit there and mold.
Yeah, somebody told me those fans, those 550 fans, the centrifugals were very similar in design
Okay.
and build and quality, maybe not quality, as a lot of those that they use outdoors. That's what I was getting to. Clay was mounting those fans outside the building on a little 12 by 12 concrete pad, just setting them out there and running his lasers so they wouldn't be in there. That's how he mitigated the noise using his lasers. At first, I think they switched to the inlines now and have them, inside. I think Grant was messing around with some of that stuff, and they lasted, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. So those fans will run outside. I don't think they're rated for it, but they will.
Yeah, since we put them like in those little deck boxes or whatever, they make a little setup, so at least it's
Mhm.
protected for the most part from rain.
Yeah,
But
I've seen
nice
people
little
put them
setup.
in Rubbermaid totes,
Yeah,
cut the holes out in the sun, do that. I would make sure that it's at least ventilated in
airflow.
some way because there is that motor fan. There's another impeller on the outside of that motor
Yep.
that keeps it cool. So you got to have some airflow around the fan itself to keep it from overheating. But yeah, cool. All right. Hey, John, how you doing, man? So, if anybody's got anything, let me know. We'll be glad to talk about pretty much anything. What did we decide our topic was this week? Oh yeah, we were still working on that when the time came up. It's been a little busier. Um, we don't really have anything new as far as what's going on in the support world, as far as I know, unless Chris's have something. CeeLo, you got anything? Uh,
Nada from my side.
well, I'm going to do the awkward silence thing for a minute then, except I might play with the soundboard while we do it.
Children
I
in the
will
Calm it out.
I will say it's quite interesting with running sales in the morning and seeing the amount of Glowforge users that are flocking our way and how frustrated they are with the service and support on that side is amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of them are going straight to a 63 130. I mean,
There are
without
some,
blinking,
yeah.
without flinching.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens quite a bit, and that's impressive.
I had a conversation with a lady a couple days ago, and she has a Glowforge, and she was thinking about a Mirror 7 or
Mhm.
something like that. She'd never heard of Thunder, and so trying to explain it to her, look, no matter which laser you picked, and of course, I told her we had Thunders. She was welcome to come out and look at them. But for her, all she ever cuts is 1/8 and quarter, ply. She hits a button that says wood. So, so her learning curve is going to be a little bit different with light burn and understanding feeds, and I'm about to say feeds and speeds, but that's the CNC.
Yeah.
Sorry, power.
Essentially, it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, trying to explain that to her opened her eyes because she wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, and they still have
Yeah.
to know thicknesses and stuff. And there's a lot of familiarity with them. It's not as hard as you would think, except for some of them that are really,
Yeah.
just won't accept the fact
mean-
that they have to not just hit the easy button.
Yeah, and I'll never bash Glowforge. There's a place for them in the market, or they wouldn't be there. That's a segue to a lot of people to get a Thunder or to be more interested in getting a more industrial laser as they grow. Especially so. I would never knock them. It's just I wouldn't want to be a part of that business model or business, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a space there. Kind of like my daughter's got a Cricut cutter, and I hate it just because I have a Graphtec. you know, but it's just what I'm used to. But she can make a sticker faster than I can, you know. So it's, you know, it's kind of the same deal. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just a little taken aback though when I just ventured over to the Glowforge website to see what one cost. If you get their pro model with the little box and everything, you're talking $9,000. $9,000.
You can get a
That's
Nova
a
24 for less than
35.
that.
I mean, that's just, you know, a little bit more, and you got the price of a 35,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I
80.
mean, the 24 has always been pretty close to the price point of the Glowforge Pro, you know, historically, except it was without reach enough that the Mini 60 would I thought would take a big hold there. The Mini 60 lacked a bunch of stuff that, you know, that the Nova 24 had, but the Glowforge didn't have it either, you know. So it'd be a good way to get a quality machine, but for an extra $1,200 or whatever the difference is between the Mini 60 and the Nova 24, I don't see the Mini 60 hanging around, you know, really. But that was the same price point as a Glowforge when they have, you know, typically. So theoretically, anybody that was going to buy a Glowforge Pro could go straight to a Thunder if they wanted to get a Mini 60. You know what I mean? And but still, there's so many people because it is promoted like a printer, and it's probably a whole lot more like a printer than a real laser. And I didn't mean real laser like that. I meant one where you have to import the graphics and kind of set everything up and kind of have it. You know, it's not quite like you said the easy button. Yeah.
Well, looking at a Glowforge, I'll be honest, I looked at one first,
Hmm.
started doing research, and I said, no, why? It's if you do your research, you're going to realize Glowforge isn't the way to go. Whatever you choose has got to be better than Glowforge. So obviously,
There's
I ended on a Thunder.
yeah.
Well, there's people
Big
running 20
Thunder.
of
Let me rephrase that. The Beast.
there's people running 20 of those things in a row,
Yeah.
and how they
Not
make
in my
money,
garage.
I don't know.
It's kind of like having a 3D printer farm. You get
Easy
enough
now.
of them, you're always going to be outputting. Chris is like, wait a minute.
His aren't running right now, though.
Hey,
That
well,
one is.
see, mine's
Oh,
not
okay.
running either. Mine hadn't run in 3 years.
This is the bad actor right here. That one's down. The one next to it's running. The 3 upstairs are idle, and the 2 in the garage are too.
Oh, and I have to
Yes.
say, 3D printer man, those resin prints of those mounts are spectacular. Thank you very much.
Yep,
Are
I
you
like
doing
them.
resin? Are you doing resin prints now for the Thundercams?
No, not yet.
It's
Brian just
prototype. Oh, I
prototyping it.
shouldn't have talked about that, should I?
Yeah, because it may not happen, but
I should have pulled a grant. Yeah.
yep.
Honestly, I mean, look how good the Lightburn mounts held up, and they weren't ideal. Our Thunder mount, I think, is far superior. Chris designed that, by the way. You know, the way it compresses the lens, you don't have that lateral movement or the chance that that cover's going to pop off. You don't have to put wire ties on it. It's just more substantial. Not that the light, I'm still using Lightburn cam from 3 years ago, and it's warped even, and I haven't had to align it. But even 3D printed stuff is fine. Every once in a while, we'll get somebody that goes, "I paid for $400 for this camera, and it's got a 3D printed mount in it. What's up?" You know, but the failure rate's like what, 0, unless they mount them in the wrong place and then break them trying to take them off. That's the only time we've ever seen a failure.
I'm going to say the resin will be a little bit more fragile than than like PETG.
Yeah. And so I've got it's the ABS light
Uh,
type
yeah.
resin.
How's that smell
Yeah.
for you?
Actually, with that printer and the brand that I've used, it's nothing. You can't even tell when it's running. It doesn't even smell like none. The other
Okay.
stuff that I had used, oh, you knew it. Like I was what I did is I turned my fan on in the laser, open up the door, open my garage, and just let it pull as much air through as possible because it stunk. But yeah, the new stuff is great. Or that, or I've become numb to it. One of the two. So, but yeah, the resin's fun. Cleanup sucks though. I mean,
Oh, well, then I shouldn't have one.
Uh,
the cleanup.
no, Post processing on resin 3D printing is a nightmare,
It is.
and can be very painful to the skin.
It does. Yep. I got it right there.
We've had both resins going. Well, one resin was going for 3 days straight. It was horrible. But our son's print was printing a mask, and then we've started getting into making master dice for dice molds and acrylic dice and stuff. So he's been running all the masters on the resin. So the past week, the house has just been horrible with resin.
Now you combine your two crafts, right? Like your laser and your resin complement each other,
Everything we do complements each other.
right?
If I build a wooden dice box, she engraves it, and then his dice, or we're backfilling with resin. I just made valet trays, and she cut all the leather to fit right into the groove that the CNC made for me.
Nice.
So everything that we do complements. It may not be 100% with the laser, 100% with woodworking or the 3D prints, but everything plays off of everybody else.
Yep.
Sweet. Yeah, I'd like to get one, but I'd never use it. I should really use my stuff more. I have enough crap I could start my own makerspace. I really want to do that. I really do.
Yeah. If only there was an hour counter on your 3D printer behind you,
It would still be at 0.
roughly.
I've calibrated a few times, but that's about it. I did a
Yeah.
benchy, okay? I did a benchy. So
I gotta box mine up and send it to you, Chris.
Yeah. Do it. Go ahead and put that boss mod in there too.
Boss mod.
Yeah, your Rotoboss boss mod.
Oh yeah, I do need to put that in there.
I had a die sub printer, a little cheap Epson that I converted a while back. And remember when Awesome came? He was in Nashville and he stopped by. I don't know if you remember. Well, anyway, he stopped by and he talked about. I'd seen him talk about wanting one at other times, so I just gave it to him. So he went across the street to the UPS place and shipped it to himself real quick, and then drove back to the airport. So that's that. It was going to sit there and clog up. You know what I mean? So I need to figure out something to make with this stuff. See, that's where I'm different. I got into lasers. Like I bet everybody in this forum got into lasers because they wanted to make something with it, and I didn't. I don't care if I ever make anything on a laser. I'm not programmed that way. I can't design. I'm not a builder. You know what I mean? I'm not a crafter. I'm a tinkerer. So it's kind of crazy sometimes the way I look at stuff, and the way Chris's look at me sometimes is a little crazy too. There we go. We don't have to have awkward silence now. I can do like when somebody joins.
Where's Jim?
I don't know.
Been awfully quiet. Are they protesting?
I'll get pretty good at this. I'll get the favorites on here. So. Well, does anybody have any questions? Oh man, we're only 24 minutes into it, guys. I'm in trouble this week.
Yeah, I might have to order a pizza or something.
So let's talk about, does anyone have a topic that they want to discuss?
I don't really have a topic, but I did let you know that I figured out about the program in the air on the controller.
You did.
And
that is
worked ever since.
That's
Yes,
crazy. That's a good find.
it
Absolutely.
said low and high the same. Well, I just
That
got to think about how you set the power to cut, the max and the minimum the same, and I thought, well, I'm gonna try it on that, and it worked.
yeah.
So I'm like you, I tinker. I ain't scared to mess
That,
with it. I know you'll fix it
that's
if I figure it out.
Myers might have seen that, Chris. Whereas if you don't set the times the same in the TL timer for both sides of the air assist, they don't do right or something. I think is
Yeah,
what the gist of it was.
Yeah,
it's
just
kind of
revert
funky
back.
because you would
And
think
you
they'd be
know,
treated independent. There should be nothing tying the two together. Like whether it's
yeah,
air, exhaust, or whatever function, it should be
and,
8
and it
channels
could
of.
just be a straight up bug, and no one's ever come across it before because no one's actually changed them. You know what I mean? Because that a lot of, you'd have to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole to number one want to change them and know what they are and know where to change them. So and I don't think we've had any. I don't recall if we've had anyone that wanted to change them.
Change what,
The
the air
air,
assist on the TL timer?
yeah, the air assist times.
We
And
did.
did you?
Yep. As soon as we got it back here and got it set up, because I could squeeze my fat rear end where the thing is. On the 130, I can't. I have to
Hmm.
move a lot of things to get to it. But we went through and watched your video and went push, push, push. Okay, down, down, down. There it is.
Yeah.
And haven't had an issue.
And I kind of wonder why the air assist doesn't just turn off at the end of the job anyway, because you're done lasing, right? I can see keeping the exhaust on, and I can see maybe keeping the air assist on for another second or two, maybe I don't know, for whatever, but not 10 seconds or 15 or however long it is,
I
But
think we dropped
honestly,
ours
I've
back
never
to
even thought about
3.5.
it. Yeah.
I actually, you know what? I do have a question reference to communication. And Chris, I know you're going to pipe up, or Brian, use English, please. The technical, if I wanted to read a technical manual, I would. So use English. Okay. So obviously we're running a Mac.
Hmm.
Oof.
We have everything hooked up through Ethernet cables.
Perfect.
Exactly. And we've got this nice, see if I can move it so you can see the damn thing.
Got it all.
Yeah.
Our little hub. Okay.
Right.
So here's a problem that we're running into is lack of communication going to, if one's running or both of them are on at the same time, it almost like it gets hung up.
It hasn't happened.
Oh, well, that's nice to know.
What'd she say?
It hasn't really done it since she switched her plugs around. So I'm wondering if it's not our hub having communication issues where it's not finding the laser or not sending all the data.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's
Um,
possible.
It's that, or could be an IP address conflict, but that wouldn't resolve itself.
No,
Not
Chris
not
fixed
not
the
with the
IP
set.
issues.
Yeah,
Okay.
the little remote got
Yeah.
those set up.
Yeah.
No,
And I've done that a bunch on a hub where if you move it from one port, like you get a dead port, and you put it in
Okay.
another one, it starts working. I've seen that happen before. I don't know, if that's what you're experiencing, but that's definitely plausible. It's that I've seen that a few times.
Okay.
I've switched, so that's
Now,
an absolutely viable,
what
possibility.
is that little white box? Is that an Apple device?
Looks like
No,
a straight hub.
It should be a
Yeah.
Netgear hub.
I think it's a dumb hub.
TP
Okay.
link.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got TP links all around, and they've been rock solid. I've got a 24 port, 6 port, and 5 port, like all throughout my house. And the way my computer routes through, it goes through a 5 port, then out to the garage to the 24 port, and then all three or both machines and my little remote computer are all on that, and it's been rock solid.
So it
The
just could be
protocol.
a flaw in the hardware itself.
Yep.
From the-
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we've seen
Fair
people's home-based routers also, like they'll be communicating for months and all of a sudden just decide not to. Some of that could be related to having an IP address in a DHCP range that then gets overwritten, so they get duplicate IPs. But
Okay.
the hardware would definitely be suspect. Cabling, you shouldn't have to worry about patch versus crossover anymore. Cable link shouldn't be an issue. Um, you know, cables can be
I haven't
problematic, so I was replacing them too.
I haven't
Bigger
heard crossover cable in a long time.
Yeah, they're history. The other thing is, do yours still have the little plastic clip so whenever you plug it in, there's no way of it slipping back out?
Yep.
Like it when okay. So
They're
sometimes those
locked.
get snapped. Okay.
And when you're having issues, have you unplugged the hub from the power and reconnected it? Because we find a lot of those bad in our school system where they just lock up.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, and I remember conversations with the commo guys and with all because everything is run, it was run on post with Ethernet cables and everything else. And it's ones and zeros, and a 1 and a 0 got connected or bounced around inside the line, and you restart everything. So yeah, we yanked plugs and said a few cuss words and try that. So that's usually the first thing. Turn it on, turn it off, or unplug it for a while.
Hmm.
And
Just
one
to
more
see.
thing you may want to check is on laptop devices, especially, they are set to power down the network connector. Sometimes if they go on battery for so long.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, they'll go to sleep on you or whatnot, and wake on land. I don't know. I don't think that works. I think
And
that's just a term.
because
But
of her Mac, she stays plugged in, and we
okay.
just keep all the dongles and everything attached to power, and just in case.
Now, the other thing that'll eliminate DHCP things, since you don't really, unless you add an exception or put it outside the pool, is if you have that hub, all your lasers are on that hub and CNC, whatever that equipment is. If you've got them on a different subnet, then you don't even have to worry about it interfering with your other primary network or your Wi-Fi network that maybe your printers and other computers and your internet's on. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, I just
'Cause
have
you're-
to process the technical jargon. Yeah,
Okay.
the only internet is coming to the laptop,
Right.
and
But it's on one street. You can make another street. You see what I mean? That has different addresses
yes,
so
yep,
that all of the houses aren't on the same street. And then
nice
there's no
analogy.
way that they can get confused. Uh,
I like it.
So
so,
how does your internet get to the laptop?
Wi-Fi.
Oh, then okay.
Until I haven't run all the hard lines yet. Sometime here in the next few months,
Now-
I've got to trench and run 100 amps to the shop from here, and then I'm just going to add the Cat 6 or Cat 7 or whatever from the house on a mesh system into here. So
now let me
Next
clarify.
to that
I
100
want to clarify something on your setup.
in,
That
in,
hub,
in the
is
same
it
hole.
going to your primary network somewhere like your modem or your router, or is that an ad hoc network with just your equipment on that local network? Does that make sense?
yes, it is just in here in her shop attached to this laptop. Once that
Okay.
laptop is removed and taken into the house, there ain't a damn
Okay.
thing going on in here.
Okay, so because if it were, then what I just told you previously would not be correct about having a different subnet, about having those on a different range. But yeah,
Well,
that
yeah, and I'm pretty sure when I set it up, I got your Wi-Fi and your internet or your
Oh
Wi-Fi
yeah,
and your machine network separate.
like
Pretty
I
sure I
said, I
did.
think it may have just been,
The
a
hub.
glitch in the matrix. The hardware wants to act up, or it's a dead terminal, on here, out of the 5 or 6 or however many it is.
sometimes those RJ45s don't get terminated well. They'll be a little loose because they're just little pins that stick down through the insulation. You know what I mean? And just by unplugging it, plugging it back in, may jiggle it or
Okay.
get it working again or something too. So sometimes some weird stuff like that. Sounds more like what it was.
So the Lightburn Bridge, there's a lot of stuff around that, but I have not heard anything about that lately. I don't know, it's just because we can't get Pi's,
It's
Raspberry
partially that.
Pis.
Adam's working on the code on the distro for the thing because I told him we really want that camera integration.
Yeah.
And I hope they put a modal in there that pops up every single time you go to use it that says you're not supposed to run your machine remotely just because you can see the camera on your Wi-Fi network now and not be tethered to the machine or some. I'm sure there'll be some kind of thing. I hope, but I can't wait for that because I've got 3 Pis sitting here just waiting to go
Well, you
on
might
my
want to see what they're
lasers.
going for. You might be able to make
Nah.
an early retirement selling those things. But it's funny you ask about that little pop-up. So I was looking at cameras on eBay for a head cam, right? Maybe a little round bullet shape, and it's like, this camera is not to be used to eavesdrop, take pictures of people, blah blah blah. I'm like, I just want to, put on my laser machine, guy. Like, come on now. But it's funny you have to put those, I guess,
Mhm.
statements or whatever. Like, please don't do this with this. So
Don't drink hot coffee.
yeah, well, super hot coffee, right?
Speaking of the cameras, I know you hook it up through the USB port and external to the machine. Does it work if I had my laser on a network Cat6 and I'm on my laptop inside the house? I know, don't run it that way. But does the camera work through the Ethernet?
No, it's
The
USB
machine is
only at this point.
oblivious.
Okay.
The actual laser machine has zero idea that the camera even exists.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That bridge, that Lightburn bridge, would allow that to happen because they'd be building a live stream in their protocols to talk directly with the software. So that would allow it over a wired or wireless network, a traditional, network. So you could actually get to the camera upstairs, or whatnot. But that's not implemented now at this time. It's USB only, so you'll have to have a physical connection or a way to transmit that USB signal reliably wirelessly. But most people, if they need to get farther away than whatever USB 2.0 calls for, which is 16 feet or something like that, and that's if you don't have any other fan out or other connectors in line where you can inject noise from other points. It doesn't take much to make a 1 and 0 in a USB. Flipping on a refrigerator or flipping on a light switch, even. So that's why they.
Or Thunder fixes it where the camera plugs into whatever computer system is on the laser.
As far as a Lightburn camera goes, that probably won't happen. Ruida has their own camera solution, and if anything, that would be closer to what you just described, as if it were a Ruida factory OEM camera or camera array, if there were such a thing. Which maybe there will be one day, huh? Maybe.
Well, I mean, yeah, Ruida's already got their big camera upgrade you can do, but you have to use RDWorks.
Yeah, the head cam, which Lightburn's got a head cam now too. So
Yep.
I haven't tried it yet. Have you?
No,
Is
I
that what you're
like I
looking
said,
for cameras for?
yeah, just looking for a little tiny bullet camera that would mount to the head, just to try it out.
I got the one with the 100-foot lead. Don't do that. It's way too long. I ran it all through the gantry, where all the airlines and all that are.
Pull 100-foot through.
I got a big wad of it in the back. I thought if I ever didn't use it, then I could take it out and use it for something else,
So I got a stupid question because we don't use the camera. Okay, I see zero need in it.
We got to mute Tommy.
What's that?
I'm going to mute you. You just said you blasphemy to the camera.
So for people coming from Glowforges, sure.
I'm sorry.
No. I don't even know what I said to upset you. My apologies. No,
you didn't upset me at all.
But the head camera you're talking about, is there a purpose other than just recording?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's far more accurate, and it actually sees the registration marks that are outputted. So it sees the crosshairs and finds its own registration. You don't have to get the red dot on top of it and push a button. It finds it for you.
When you're looking at trying to either do specific tasks like what, cut and print or,
Exactly. Jigs,
okay,
things like that. Hmm.
What would be
okay.
awesome is
And I
contour
guess
cut.
our workflow doesn't, everything goes from the middle. Like the middles are marked no matter what, or she'll frame it and there it is and it runs. You
Right.
know, the frame button we're going to wear out, but you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
Look at
but
the head
there's
camera. Look at the head camera like this. Laser dot on a drill press.
don't even have one of those. I don't, I guess I'm old. But I
yeah.
see your point. I see I see
And
the point. That's
the
why I
other
was
thing
asking.
about the camera is this one will only scan the outside boundary of the artwork, but the camera is a lot narrower field of view and it's a lot closer to the material, like inches away. So the resolution is incredible because it will go by and scan the area that you want it to, and only that area, if I'm not mistaken. And it will do it at a very high resolution and stitch them together. So the clarity and resolution would be of the stitched image would be worlds beyond that overhead down looking 8 megapixel. Like you could zoom in and see detail like crazy, you know, for placement. The accuracy is crazy higher because also it's actually mounted on the same head that the laser beam is aligned to come down, not on a lid that gets moved up and down and that can change and things like that. It's mounted right to the physical part of the head that can, basically tells the laser where to fire. So the accuracy has to be 1,000 times more accurate than an overhead camera in my.
I guess as long as it serves a purpose and people, use it for that purpose, then
Yeah.
So it's out of my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, and
we don't do those things.
I agree. And if you look at a lot of the people that have been running lasers for a long time and making money with them and know how to run them, they manually focus. They don't use the fancy stuff. They just line it up and go.
It would be cool. Like, so we talked earlier about combination of things. Like if you did dye sub and you want to do ornaments and you submit a whole sheet, if you just throw that sheet in there, not worrying about a jig file or lining it up and say, you know what, this is the color you're going to identify, black or whatever, bright pink, and just contour cut that. And the laser basically takes the head cam and just zips that on around. That could be a serious time saver and more accurate than, when you draw a perfect circle in Lightburn. But if your wood has any kind of bow, just like on a tumbler, things don't look right if there's any kind of bow or whatever or curvature to it, and you cut that out, in Vinyl World, you're always doing bleed lines that go beyond where you want to cut, so you don't end up with white space. Same thing here. It could basically cut really accurate, as long as you set your offsets up right and everything, and cut that out for you. So it would be cool. The head cam is, they can develop it with whatever code they want to throw at it. So.
And I'm yeah, well, I mean, we've got a neighbor that can sublimate wood all day long for us, but it's and I guess that she's just always, okay, here's the 12 by 20 piece of wood, all the images go into it, and it goes. But I guess when you're trying to line something specific up to a pattern on, whether it's I have to only cut this snowman out of this entire pattern when there's 40 other little snowmen around it. I guess that's what you're speaking of, that head cam would give you more accurate.
Well, yeah, I don't know if it will or not, but the capabilities are there, right? Like it's just whatever software they can write to trace out a particular line color or whatever and do contour cuts would be fantastic. Because the other stuff, I think with that, the Ruta solution has got the big bright light, and I don't know if they uses track or what it uses and already works, but it's supposed to be able to kind of trace around and cut things for you. So it's really just once you get the image, it's doing the software work on it, just like the trace function in Lightburn.
Yeah, they're doing some crazy stuff. And Ruita's doing some crazy stuff, from what I understand. Some crazy stuff. Everybody's doing crazy stuff, except Thunder.
Right?
We don't do super crazy stuff. We stick with what we know. So.
I'm still looking through the that Ruta wiki to see if there's any commands that can write axis parameters as part of a file, and I'm pretty sure they're there for the rotary jobs, so that your steps and diameter always transfer with the file and save
Hmm.
as part of the file. That would be cool, wouldn't it, if it was part of it?
I'm gonna put the mic on mute because I don't even want to get started on steps and everything else.
You stirred up a hornet's nest, Chris, talking
Right?
about steps.
I mean, I could talk about that Kentucky football game the other week. That'd probably really get it going.
All day long. We don't watch. No. I think you and I've had this conversation before, Brian. In reality, if you've got your diameter of your wheel set and you have your the steps per rotation should never change because everything is a hard number. And having to tweak it just, I don't wrap my mind around the tweaking of stuff when you have hard numbers that you have to go off of.
Because so if I was going to engrave this Coke bottle, right, and I drive it right here, this
Which you can never
diameter
do.
or circumference, yeah, is a lot smaller than it is over here, right? So just think about like the gear of like a 10-speed bike or whatever, the one you want.
Oh, no,
to use when
I
you go to field.
understand. And I
Yeah.
see that as you put a jig on it, it's all the same size. And
You can do that.
You 3D print a donut.
Yeah.
Yeah, you 3D print a donut and
Or you could go the other way
Laser
and
cut
calculate
one.
the differences for the image. Calculate
Oh.
the difference for what the image needs to be, and then make it that way so that it comes out correctly. That's an
Yeah,
option.
stretch it.
Now they have companies that do the shrink wrap or whatever. Like whenever you get these bundled products, they'll take a grid, they'll shrink wrap it around your bundle of Cokes, see what the grid looks like, use their little scanners, and then they actually print their graphics on their stretch film in that form. So when they shrink, they're right.
Yeah.
So it is technology.
Like writing on a rubber band and then letting go of it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So they would basically, as you
Yes,
stretch
I'm a
rubber
man
band,
child.
Yeah. Pull it out. Hey, what's this say, Brian?
Balloons work good too if you need to convey more than just one or two words.
Tommy, you could tell Lois that all of my trainings with the new Glowforge people, I train them not to use the camera first.
As soon
we
as
avoid that.
is feeling better and can actually hold a conversation without coughing, we'll be scheduling because she's proficient with everything now. So it's just on to the finer detail. But it was a week or two of pure hell around here, and then all the residual effects, and she's still coughing. So there's no sense in trying to.
She was just making fun of the Glowforge users, and I was like, they need to learn how to use our machines without these accessories in case they are out of alignment, in case the autofocus doesn't work. Something strange. Let's know how to do everything manually first, and then we'll add in the cool features.
And she literally the other day, she was doing something. She threw the board in, hit autofocus with the head way out of the way just to bring the table up faster, and then went through and manually focused. I mean, we don't use I guess we've done it long enough now that manually focusing is just as fast as waiting on everything to adjust and finalize. And have y'all ever run into where you throw a board in and autofocus, especially when you're talking about thicker boards? It doesn't drop it down low enough. You have to do it a couple of times. That's been a normal thing.
It's got
it's
a
a normal
limit of
thing.
how far it'll drop. So
Okay.
what you ought to do
before it detects something, so it can't
Yeah.
freewheel.
Yeah. So you really ought to just lower it down below the eye, then do your autofocus. So then it's always raising up instead of doing the lower. I mean, it's not much. It's like maybe 6 millimeters it's not a whole lot of thickness before it says, you know, when I'm done moving 10 millimeters or so, it just says, all right, that's far enough, and just sits there. You don't hear that whole, you know, burn, 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 burn noise that it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Of course, you could just hit autofocus again and it'll restart the cycle and move it up
Right.
more, you know, and get it
And
going
that's
again.
what it did earlier. She hit autofocus twice and it dropped it
Yeah.
down. And then she does the fine detail of, you know, because most people don't pay attention that if you really just only want to use autofocus, then set the ring, you know,
Yeah.
do the measurements from across it to make sure
Mhm.
that you've got, you know, what you're supposed to, the distance, and permanently set that ring.
Yeah, and I agree. People have been using lasers without a camera for 20 years or longer, you know, and it is for most people not a necessity, you know, that kind of thing. Except, and our autofocus, I know is, uh, you'll hear it from people that have epilogues that have been running them, from anybody that has, especially the ones that are stylus, you know, the plunger on the head for the autofocus. You've probably seen those. Because what if they go in the honeycomb? What if they go in the hole? You know, and they don't hit the material. So I like ours that it actually has, like, across your garage door. If you step across it, it's gonna go off, you know, or stop, whatever. But that's also our end stop. So you can't just disable it, you know, and
Yep.
and it only truly works when you push the autofocus button. Autofocus doesn't mean that it's continuously monitoring the situation and adjusting. It just means that it'll be automatic once you push the button, you know. So because we get a call a lot of times about how do I disable my autofocus? Well, technically, unless you push the button, it is, you know. So and you can't just unplug that sensor because it's also a safety. It's the end stop, which I like also. And that's part of going back to how we were talking about how it'll move a little bit, and then if it doesn't detect a change, it'll stop. It's just another safety that's built in to keep from crashing heads, which, considering the amount of times the Z-axis controls have been inadvertently turned on for people and stuff like that, I'm surprised we haven't had more.
I do use the autofocus on the Odin every time.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
nice
now,
and fast and easy.
also, if you do use the camera, you need to use the autofocus, because the distance from the surface of the material to the camera lens is just as critical as the distance of the laser beam or the head from the material. Otherwise, you won't maintain the accuracy. So if you use a camera, you should calibrate it in conjunction with the autofocus and use it with autofocus. Otherwise, the distance, if you manually focus, the distance may be different every time, and it can throw you off by millimeters at, you know,
Yeah, there's too
at
much
the
crap
alignment.
that can go wrong when you start adding all of the accessories and all of the bells and whistles.
So absolutely. And even, you know, in the cheat sheet at the top, it says put your machine together with all of the factory stuff first and make sure it all works. Then if you want to add your air compressor, add an air compressor. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So you can at least test everything and make sure that it's all functional. And then if you want to sit it on the shelf for a backup, go for it. Then you can get you external air connected and that kind of thing. But it makes it easier to eliminate or not add variables ad nauseum just for the sake of adding them. You're right.
Well, I read all these things and it said I need a new air compressor and I need a new fan and I need this and I need this, and no, you don't.
Well, see, and that goes back to a lot of the people. It goes back to this whole thing about how fast we can get the machines and the word spreading and just everybody knowing about them now. You know, as that whole culture changes, you know, in the laser world, because like you said, we're getting a lot of people that go from Glowforge to Thunder. So there's, you know, and the Glowforge is probably more user friendly. So there is a little bit of learning curve there, and all of that stuff kind of adds to it. But it's kind of nuts the way everything's shaping up, because you don't have time to do the research. You know, 3 years ago, the people that were calling that, you know, asking about the machines were telling me more about the machines than I knew about them. You know, because they've been researching for 6 months, you know, on different machines and already knew everything about it, you know, and already knew that there was a cheat sheet to start from, and that it would tell you that you need to use send and not start, and to tell you to check air assist before you run your machine so you don't burn up your lens. And sometimes that just gets lost in translation. I think mostly a lot because they're getting them so fast. People are buying the machines just because they can get them fast, without doing any research. I need a machine. I need it now. I heard they're great. That's all I need to know. And that's a good thing because that's right. There's enough real, feedback about our machines. People don't need to do a lot of, they can trust what they're seeing and not have to do a lot of research, but at the same time, you miss some of those critical clues that maybe you could already have a step up on where your first machine, what, did you wait 4 months for it? Tommy, was yours, or were you getting yours fast then, your very first one?
No, we got lucky when we called Grant. It was already on a boat headed here.
Yeah.
Okay. It didn't have a buyer. That's because we were at the tail end of when y'all switched from 6-inch to 8-inch exhausts. So like R130 has a 6-inch.
Yeah.
It was in that tail end time. So
Gotcha.
What, month and a half is all we waited.
So you had a little time to read the stuff or not, but I mean, there was time, but now people are getting their machines in 2 or 3 weeks, so it catches you off guard almost.
And that was the difference in us. We already had the Boss, which still had the same
right. You're
controller.
already running machines.
Yeah, we were already running, and she had experience with an Epilogue.
Yeah.
Before.
So you definitely had a leg up. You hit the ground running. Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. And then I know that, we've talked with y'all and whatnot, and the fiber's our next purchase. So that's why I asked you about the Lightburn and EasyCat 3 so that we can make an informed decision. But when everybody starts talking about, the frequency and all the other crap that goes into it, there's our learning curve for something new, because we understand speed and power. I understand, feeds and speeds for CNC, that's some of and not a lot of people really get to explaining that. So there's your job, CeeLo. Put that into English for,
A crash course in Fiber 101 stuff on the.
Yeah, so, and I'm trying really hard when I'm doing some of these trainings to tell them the limits of cutting and what are the speeds for scoring and what are your typical engraving speeds, and narrowing that window down for them makes it a little bit easier, as opposed to I don't know. All right, well, I mean, a lot of it's preferential stuff too. How deep do you want the engrave? How dark do you want the engrave? So there isn't a right answer for that.
And reading this is just like reading any other chart. It's all subject to what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can feel and see this.
You can do that on Fiber. And there are materials tests, not only for speed and power on Fiber, but for frequency and all of that stuff. I don't know if all of those are built in Lightburn, but there are test files out there or generators for them.
Okay.
Oh yeah, these are just letting Lightburn do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same speed, but different powers and frequencies.
Okay.
On aluminum.
Okay.
Is that a MOPA? You're getting a pretty dark black on that aluminum.
No, it's the 20.
Oh, that's right. You got the same one I got. Man, you're going to show me how to work this thing. I have some aluminum, but I can't make it black like that.
Can you schedule a session?
How much you going to charge me, man? You got to give me a discount.
And that's not bad for stainless steel.
No, like I said, everything is
right down
we're taking,
fast.
Everything is paid for now. So now it's hiding the money and is saving. If we hadn't got into this whole dice making and acrylic nonsense, or resin nonsense, then
you're gonna have a bubble gram machine before too long.
What's that?
I'm going to talk to Grant. I'm going to talk to Grant. We need to drop the price a little bit too. But beyond that, are you on our list, Tommy, for demos?
What do you mean?
He's not. We haven't signed up any
Lois,
new demo partners in a long
where-
time.
Where'd your wife come from? That was,
Hiding in the corner.
it's like demos. What? Phew, right there. I'll
Yeah,
talk to Grant.
I don't think
don't
we've
think
added
we're on a
anybody.
list, but we're
in
willing
a
to be
while.
on a list.
Well, and we're also looking at this other list on boots on the ground, helping each other out, network kind of thing.
Right.
I think all that's something that we need to help evolve. And
Yeah.
you know,
If you need us for the Louisville, Kentucky, Fort Knox, wherever area, we don't care.
Oh, you
Teach
have
me
two
how to do
machines,
tech
which is
support.
nice.
What's that, Chris?
I said you have two machines, which is nice. So they
Pretty
can
soon.
see.
get him fiber.
Right.
We'll get him a
Convince-
fiber over there.
Yeah, convince Grant to send us a fiber. Sure, I'll put a big sign out front that says Thunder Laser. I don't care.
We can give away the store. We're not in sales.
You know, y'all can send me. You know, if y'all need another or somebody else, I'll learn to work on the damn things. I don't care. It's not hard.
We have a big list, but I know you